There we go. We have the red light. That means that you and I are together again, as Buck sang. Together again. All the scriptures are flying around. Yeah. Well, yesterday I felt bad. Today I'm ready to charge hell with a squirt gun. Are you with me? There we go. Okay. I'm just going to recap a little bit. We're in the book of the prophet Jeremiah, and uh, God has been pronouncing judgment for a couple of chapters on Judah, and then keeps turning around and offering them his hand and begging them to return to him. In the last couple of days, he has offered them a better deal than they ever had. Before he had offered that he's going to destroy the city, but he was going to preserve their lives if they would just return to him. Now he's told them if they'll return to him, he'll let them stay here. In other words, the ones that return to him, they would be under Chaldean, Babylonian rulers or by puppet kings appointed by Babylon. But they could stay at home. They wouldn't have to go off to a far place where they didn't understand the language and where they'd be treated like slaves, and they wouldn't be taken into slavery. It would be, of course, it would be a form of serfdom, and they would be under the rule of foreigners, but they would be alive and they would be at home. This was a better deal than he had offered them before, but they still would not return. And then he goes back into explaining why he has to judge them. God never explains himself, almost never. That's part of being God. He doesn't have to say bind or leave to anybody. You know what I'm saying? But he does here. He explains exactly why their judgment is coming upon them. Now, let's just back up. I want to back up 2 days, just so that I remember well enough. Beginning in verse 1 of chapter 7, the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Stand in the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim these words, and say, Hear the word of the Lord, all ye Judah that enter in at these gates. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. This is 10 years after good King Josiah is dead. As I said before, the math is tricky. We're either during the last days of Jehoiakim the king, or we're in the early administration of Zedekiah the king. Now, in verse 4, Jeremiah is speaking the word of the Lord. And he says, Trust ye not in lying words, saying, The temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. Their prophets, their priests had told all the people, the princes, the king's court, the king, and told everybody that, hey, God's not going to destroy Jerusalem because the temple is here. He's not going to destroy the temple. Well, God says, yeah, I'll destroy it and you with it. So don't go to the temple for protection. You can come to me for protection, but not the temple. For if you truly amend your ways and your doings, if you truly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, if ye oppress not the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other gods to your hurt, then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. It makes that promise again. You will stay. You don't have to go into captivity. You can stay here. Behold, and then he wraps it up here. He says, You trust in lying words that cannot profit. The lying words specifically that he's talking about is God will not destroy Jerusalem because of the temple. Well, he would, and he did. He didn't, not only once, he did it twice. He did it again in 70 AD when Titus brought the Roman army and destroyed Jerusalem. Now, beginning in verse 9 of the book of the prophet Jeremiah. Will ye steal and murder? Good morning, my cousin Jack. Love, grace, and peace to Jack. I used to love to sing with Jack Craig. He played the guitar. He knew songs I didn't know. He could play the songs I knew, but he was farther along on the guitar than I was at that time. And he could play songs I didn't know. And it was from Jack I learned to sing Johnny Rivers songs. What a deal. That was in the day. That was back when men were men, and I don't know the rest of it, but it was a different time. We steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not, and come and stand before me. This is what you're doing, guys. Hear, O Judah, this is what you're doing. You steal, you murder, you commit adultery, you lie, you swear falsely, you burn incense unto Baal. You're worshiping other gods. Remember, Baal was the god of old Jezebel. She brought organized and active devil worship from Tyre, which is a part of modern Lebanon. She was a king's daughter. She married Ahab. Ahab was wicked, but I always felt like he wouldn't have done as much damage if he hadn't been married to that old witch. Will ye steal and murder and commit adultery and swear falsely, and burn incense unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not? And come and stand before me in this house. You keep doing all these horrible things, and you come to worship in the temple. And they're crying, well, God won't destroy us because of the temple. See, their hearts are not with God at all. And come and stand before me in this house, which is called by my name, the house of the Lord, and say, we are delivered to do all these abominations. Oh, man. Does that sound familiar to you? God delivered us so we would be okay. He delivered us so we could safely commit all these sins and still everything be okay. It's not how it works. It says, we're delivered to do all these abominations. God saved us and he loves us no matter what we do. That is a picture of modern Christianity. I just call it churchianity. It's, Christianity in America is, a mile wide and a half-inch deep. It's just, there's nothing to it. And they have forgotten the God of their fathers. They have forgotten the God of the Bible. They don't know the God of the Bible. And most people who think they're saved aren't. They're going to hell. And they believe that because they've got a ticket to heaven, because they said a prayer or a preacher told them that they were saved, or they were in a Bible study and they were welcomed in and never was born again. You must be born again. You must be made new. You must become a different person. And if you don't, you're not saved. If you're not saved, you're not born again. If you're not born again, you're going to hell. You see, if you're born once, you'll die twice. Everybody's born from their mother. If you're born that way, well, you'll die twice. You'll die your physical death, and then you'll die the second death and be cast into the lake of fire. But if you're born twice, like if you're born like everybody else is born, and then you're born again of the Spirit by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, and that not of yourselves, not of works, lest any man should boast. It is the gift of God. Then you only die once, physical death, because you'll be alive with Jesus for eternity. And you may not even die once, because you could go up alive in the rapture. And I think many people listening to me this morning, the rapture may take you up, because I expect it to happen any day. I don't think I'm going to be here long enough to finish the book of Jeremiah, but I'm going to keep on preaching just as though I were, because I don't know what is in the mind of God, and I don't pretend to know the mind of God. All I know is that everything is ready and the table is set for us to go up in the rapture, and it could happen at any minute. I guess those things could change, but they're not changing right now. You see, people believe that they have a ticket to heaven so they can just keep on living like they were living. And they go to church and they check off the box. I don't understand that. I've never understood that. Now, I've had my times of declension and rebellion to where I have left the side of God. I've left Jesus and lived in the world and was beat up for it. He nearly killed me because of it. As a matter of fact, if I had not put the cork back in the jug and followed him on February 6, 1997, he would have killed me. He made it very clear to me that this was the end of the road and that he was tired of me embarrassing him. And so I had to straighten up and start living a straight life at the age of 42. I did that. It was tough. I'm telling you, it was tough. But I got a great master, and he delivered me through it. These people, they lied, they cheated, they stole, they fornicated, and they said that God delivered us so we could keep doing those things. He didn't. You see, I see all the time, I see guys and girls too, they just, they say they're saved, they believe in Jesus, but they drink. And I don't want to make a program about drinking, but I'm a teetotaler, and I believe the Bible teaches that you're not supposed to drink. For fun, anyway. I happen to believe that way. Prove me wrong. I'm willing to listen to your ill-conceived arguments because I've heard them all. I tell the young men that become a teetotaler. It will cost you nothing and gain you much. Don't drink. And people say, well, Jimmy, you only say that because you were drunk. Well, maybe that's true, but that doesn't make it any less valid. I know this, that I've tried to witness to people with a shot of Cuervo in one hand and a Lone Star beer in the other hand, and they didn't listen to me. You figure it out. There's a gnat. What a deal. I see young men and women and old men and women, who just shack up without the benefit of the clergy, so to speak, without getting married. And then the shack-ups produce shacklings, and they think it's okay for mommy and daddy not to be married. But they're saved. They've got their ticket to heaven. But they live just like the world. What about people who lie still and cheat in business? You're either saved or you're not. If you're saved, you're not like you were. You're different. If you're not different, you're not saved. Come to Christ today. Come to Christ. He didn't save you. He didn't die on the cross so that you could keep living the way you're living. He shed his precious blood that he might save unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. He did it by his will that he would save us for that reason. And that we would do the works that he set before us. But you have to be born again first. A ticket to heaven is a free ride. But you've made the mistake of thinking that salvation is free. It is a free gift to you and me. But it's not cheap. It's not free to God. Everything that you get that's free, somebody paid for. You know, the kids that get a free lunch at school, it comes from tax dollars. Don't get me wrong, I want them to get the free lunch at school because our society is disintegrated to a point that if they weren't getting a free lunch and a free breakfast at school, they'd starve to death. But nothing is free. Everything that you get for free, somebody paid for. Well, this salvation, this great salvation that we have, was bought and paid for. Matter of fact, the scripture says not once but twice in 2 consecutive chapters in the book of 1 Corinthians that we are bought with a price. We don't belong to ourselves anymore. We've been purchased. Once you've been saved, you've been purchased. You belong to a master. And you don't belong to yourself anymore. And we live to serve him and not ourselves. This is the hardest thing to do. Well, Jimmy, I don't think it's sin. I don't think this is sin. I don't think that is sin. Well, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think either. But I tell you a good indicator. Whether you feel like you're sinning or not, if it's to satisfy someone else or the Lord, or the Lord satisfying someone else through you, if the goal is to fulfill duty to God and your fellow man, it's probably okay. It's probably of God. But if the goal is to satisfy yourself through drink, through sex, through marijuana, look, you're not talking to a novice. I spent many years believing in better living through pharmacology. I'm just glad that I did it before this meth craze. I knew what an amphetamine was, but I didn't have any idea what this meth was. It's a mess. I'm glad I got done being a drug addict before that hit. Man, I'd have had a harder time than I did. But you see, if the thing is to satisfy you, it's probably a sin. If the deal is to satisfy God or your fellows, it may not be a sin. It could be a sin, but it's probably not. But see, if you're saved, you'll know the difference. No saved person can say, I didn't know that was wrong, because the Holy Ghost lives inside you and he will tell you that it was wrong. If you're not convinced before you commit the sin, he will convince you of it after you commit the sin and will beat you up and wear you out until you repent and say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sorry, Lord. And always remember, confession is just telling God that he's right and you're wrong. That's all it is. It says we are delivered to do all these abominations. I see it in the church every day. I see it among preachers. I see it among these big ministries that are really just big businesses. And it's done to the glory to the glory of the team, to the glory of the pastor, to the glory of the church members, to the glory of the community, and not to the glory of God. Oh, man. Sometimes the monstrosity of what the Church of Jesus Christ has become, what I call the church industry, it wears me out so much. I just don't sometimes have the strength to even think about it anymore, but I have to keep thinking about it. You know, I'm writing a book right now because I feel like he wants me to. And like with our other works in the recent past, we will raise support for the book. It's not to sell. We will give this away wherever we preach, because we want people to have the information. But it will be more than a pamphlet. It will be a short book, and it will deal with the end times. And there are 7 specific phases of the end times we still have to go through. Now, the rapture could happen at any minute, of course, and then I wouldn't be able to finish it. But I wouldn't need to warn people and tell people to watch for the rapture if it had already come, so it would make my book obsolete. We wouldn't need it anymore. But just like Jesus said, like I said yesterday, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. Well, the rapture will be night on earth for me. It'll be over and out. I'm done. But if I can finish it before he comes, you see, just because I think he's going to come today or tomorrow or next week, just because I think he's coming soon, that doesn't give me an excuse to crawl up on top of my house and, put on a bed sheet and wait for him to fly me up into heaven. No, we work until Jesus comes. We work till Jesus comes. That's a good song. We were not delivered to keep on sinning. We were not delivered to keep on sinning. And this is what the Lord said of his church, the congregation of that day. It wasn't a church, but it was a church in the sense that the word church in Greek is ecclesia, which means a called out assembly. So they were a called out assembly. They were the congregation. And they believed that they could just keep on doing whatever they wanted to do because God had delivered them. We are delivered so that we're able to keep doing these things. In other words, God is protecting us so we can keep on sinning. That is the way many modern Christians look at the church now. And then verse 11, God says through Jeremiah, "Is this house which is called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Lord." He said, I see everything you do. I know why you're doing it. You're worshiping it because you think you will mollify me or placate me in some way. It ain't going to work. I got your number. I know that you love yourselves and not me, and you love your other gods and not me, and you love sin and not me, and you think that I'm going to protect you just because you're in the temple. Well, tain't so. We will continue this tomorrow. If you don't know Jesus, come to him today.